Hello, good evening and welcome to Look North and welcome to the International Bomber Command Centre just on the south edge of Lincoln, which has been opened in a special ceremony, a chilly ceremony, it has to be said, at lunchtime today. Now the centre remembers the 57,861 young men and women who served and helped serve and help the bombing missions in World War II. 300 veterans have been here today at this ceremony at lunchtime. The youngest was 92 and the oldest was 100 to take part in a ceremony to formally open the site. Firstly tonight, Kate Sweeting has a report on today's events.
It's a day some thought would never come, a permanent memorial in Bomber Command's spiritual home, Lincolnshire. They may be 7 decades older, but for these veterans, the memories haven't faded.
I was a baby of the crew, really, but I'm the last one now. They've all gone. We were like a band of brothers. It was as simple as that. We lived together, we flew together. Lives depended upon one another.
It means a great deal, because it deals with an aspect of the war which affected me deeply, and I am sure helped the war effort enormously too.
But Bomber Command didn't only drop bombs, it also dropped food. Kobe Van Rail was just 8 years old and starving to death in occupied Holland when the RAF parachuted in supplies.
I have hardly any words because I'm so thankful that they did that. You know, the dropping of the food, not saving my family, but all those people living there. That's why I'm here. I might have not been here, or my children or my grandchildren.
Despite the dismal weather, more than 300 Bomber Command veterans have gathered here from across the globe. Some are seeing one another for the first time since the Second World War. The youngest veteran is 92, and it's all the more poignant that this is likely to be the last formal gathering of Bomber Command veterans.
It's just so privileged to be back, and I hope that people today will be able to learn a lot more from this place.
It's absolutely brilliant. It all needs to be remembered because so many people sacrificed their lives for this nation.
It's really great to see that they've made this big centre for them and to commemorate them, and just to make sure that they have the recognition they deserve.
As time passes, fewer veterans survive to tell their stories, but it's hoped this memorial will ensure future generations never forget. Kate Sweeting, BBC Look North at the International Bomber Command Centre in Lincoln.
Kate, thanks very much indeed. It's been a very emotional day for very many people with very many memories. Now, more than 1 million men and women served or supported the bombing missions in World War II. And many of them, of course, lived and flew out of Lincolnshire. A third of all the RAF bases in the country were in Lincolnshire. In fact, 27 in all. Places like Waddington and Coningsby, we all know, they're well known, they're modern RAF stations today. But there's some other names that maybe you're not so sure about. Wickenby, Woodall Spa, Strubby, Ludford Magna, all had stations. But these missions, they were, it has to be said, very controversial. And it's taken many decades for this centre here and this memorial up here to actually be built. And also a similar one a couple of years ago in London. Well, Joe Makel looks now at why Bomber Command was so important, but also why there has been, why they've had such a struggle for recognition.
Now the Battle of Britain is on. The Germans fling the full weight of their air force against our civilian life.
The Battle of Britain was a famous victory for the RAF, but it also marked the start of a change in strategy. Hitler's planned invasion had been stopped, but Britain remained on the defensive. To those in command, only the bombers could take the fight to the Nazis.
It was a war that had to be won. The Nazi regime could not be allowed to continue, and I have no doubts that RAF Bomber Command helped to shorten the war, bring it to a successful conclusion and save lives on our side.
An army of between 5,000 and 6,000 RAF flyers were in the air over Hamburg within an hour.
Let him have it right on the chin.
The RAF's top man, Air Marshal Arthur Bomber Harris, wanted to break the enemy's morale. Nighttime raids targeted German cities, home to war production and other industries. Taking on the job were crews of often very young men. Harry Parkins joined the RAF when he was just 19, and his first bombing raid came sooner than he thought.
The group cat said to me, I understood you wanted a little bit more training on Lancasters. I said, yes, sir. He said, good, you're flying on ops tonight. So I was put in at the deep end.
They needed courage and quick wits just to survive.
In the night, they attacked you, 5-10 seconds, that's it. So if you didn't see them, they'd got you. When we came out of Hamburg, 25 Messerschmitt 262s attacked us. And the next second, the back marker aircraft, which was VNS, exploded, dropped down. I saw the rear gunner. He dragged himself out of his turret, and his parachute opened just like that. I thought, oh, he's going to make it. And next thing, his parachute burst into flames. And I watched his body drop. It still hurts me.
There were 125,000 men who flew with RAF Bomber Command during the war, of whom 55,573 lost their lives, and the average age at death was 23. These men paid a huge price.
Some operations were seen as both strategic successes and a boost to British morale. The Dambuster raids of 1943 became immortalised in film. Industry and infrastructure were affected, and the bombing raids tied up German Luftwaffe planes and artillery so they couldn't be used elsewhere. But Bomber Command's actions were also controversial. Hundreds of thousands of German civilians were killed as cities like Dresden were devastated.
For decades after the war, there was a national feeling of guilt. Some of the men involved felt they couldn't really talk about what they'd done as a result, and it did take until the last couple of decades really for that to change and for us to begin to realise that what they'd done should be correctly remembered.
Well, you really do need to visit the International Bomber Command Centre here in Lincoln. So much work has gone into it over the last 8 years of fundraising and then, of course, construction. But it is now open. It cost £12.5 million. It's not just the wonderful spire and also the panels, which we'll talk about in just a moment. There's also a conference centre and a cafe as well. And inside you can find out all about what Bomber Command actually did. Yesterday I went for a look round. Not a bad view. This is Cannock Hill in Lincoln, even on a day like today. This is now home to the International Bomber Command Centre and the distinctive spire. It is the tallest war memorial in the UK, made of weathered steel. It's 31 metres tall, and that is the wingspan of a Lancaster, the most used bomber in the war. At the bottom, it is 5 metres wide, and that was the width of a wing on a Lancaster bomber. And over here, panels all around the outside with the names of a staggering 57,861 men and women who perished either serving in or supporting Bomber Command during World War II. It's not just the spire, there's also a visitor centre, an exhibition and museum. It's called the Roy Chadwick Centre. Roy Chadwick designed the Lancaster bomber. I have to say the displays here are so well worth seeing. They're absolutely fascinating. Lincolnshire got the nickname Bomber County through having so many RAF stations in the county. This map here shows all 27 RAF Bomber Command stations in Lincolnshire. Well, Nicky Barr is the Chief Executive here. Why is this place so important?
Because for so many years these stories have remained untold, hidden. The documents that back them up have been kept in cupboards or boxes. There was a great deal of, we've done the war, we've done that thing, now it's time to get back to real life.
But the crime and the interesting thing is, why has it taken so long?
These guys were vilified when they got back for the bombings of Cologne and Hamburg, Berlin, and actually there was a sense, I think, that politically it was embarrassing to recognise what they had done. And it really took until 2012 when the London Memorial was unveiled and they got their clasp for there to be any recognition at all.
It is an extraordinary place. Very good to see you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Well, two events here at the Bomber Command Centre today. The official launch and opening at lunchtime today and the ribbon cutting. Tonight, it's more of a celebration with a concert. You can probably hear them warming up and getting ready behind me. It is being hosted and compared by television presenter and huge supporter of the RAF, Carol Vorderman, and she's with us now. Carol, good evening to you.
Hello.
Very nice to see you.
It's actually warmer tonight than it was earlier.
Oh, well, that's some consolation. How did your association with the RAF start?
Well, years and years and years ago, I tried to join as a fighter pilot when I was in my teens. I went to university and I knocked on the door of the University Air Squadron and I said, "I'm here." And they said, "No, you can't join because you're a girl." And 40 years later, my own daughter was able to join the same University Air Squadron. It's a time of celebration, really, for that. But I always, and I don't know why, I always wanted to be a fighter pilot. I've always revered those in the Royal Air Force.
How important do you think this is today for those people?
I think it's important on many levels. So for the veterans who are still with us, it's terrifically important because after the war, Bomber Command and all those who served and died fighting in Bomber Command were severely snubbed by the politicians, and it is something that they still resent, that, you know, it was the military unit that lost the most lives and the average age was only 23, and they were just young men who were taking orders.
And the odds that they had of coming back
was about 1 in 2 chance of completing 30 operations, and it was just terrible. And of those other half, you know, many were captured, some tortured. They weren't got good odds, and yet still they volunteered, and they were all volunteers. So today, I was involved in the unveiling of the Bomber Command Memorial in Green Park and the fundraising for that in 2012, and it was a hugely significant moment for all those who served. There were over a million men and women who were involved in some way with Bomber Command. And in the Royal Air Force, of course, you know, it's still highly revered, and they respect those who went before.
The figures, when you look at the figures and the numbers, when I was doing some research, it was just horrifying, and it just unbelievable, the numbers.
Yeah, they were unbelievable, and the conditions under which they just went up and went over. And my father, Mr. Vorderman, was in the Dutch resistance, and during the winter of 1944-45, Hitler was starving the Dutch, and it was called the Hunger Winter, and it was the first humanitarian aid mission was from Bomber Command dropping in Operation Manna, dropping food.
It's very good to see you. I'll let you go and get ready because you've got a big job to do, haven't you, on stage?
Thank
it's very
you.
nice to see you after 30
something.
30 something. Nice to see you, Carol. Good luck with the show tonight. Carol Vorderman, who's hosting the event this evening. Thank you for watching this special programme coming live from the International Bomber Command Centre. And still ahead on the programme tonight, I've been talking to the last living British dambuster who tells Look North why this memorial is so important to him.
When you got to Lincoln Cathedral and you could see Lincoln Cathedral somewhere away, you were home. To me, all those names on that wall now, they're all home.